Okay. Look. Before I do any introductions here, I know the question is, I saw the movie today, so why did I kind of delay it a little bit? Like, why did I delay from seeing it this morning and holding off the review up until now? Here's the reason why. I wanted to hold it off because I wanted to process it through my mind and, write it out. So that way I could analyze it and see, like, alright, what were the good, what were the, what were the positives, what were the negatives, what were the neutrals, etc. So now, and let me fix this real quick, thank you. And anyway, wow. But given that much time on waiting, I was like, okay, I feel like now's the best time to do the review. So that's the whole reason why I was holding off my review until now. And this for this review, now I mean, he's not present here, as you can tell, but he will be communicating with us today. And guys, you know him all too well. Give it up for Patrick Seaman for joining me
Oh,
on the review. And Patrick, you saw X-Men Days of Future Past. Was it the was it midnight premiere or did you go see it last Friday? Like Friday
last Friday.
before, like after the midnight premiere, right?
Yeah,
Hmm. So how big was the crowd? I guess that's the big question I should be asking people. Cause
big.
I bet, considering that it was an X-Men, I'm like, yeah. But here's the thing. Jumping into the review, okay? When this movie starts off, okay? I mean, can anyone say post-apocalyptic times 20?
Me,
I'm just thinking, post-apocalyptic times 20. That's how this movie started. Like,
times 20?
mm-hmm.
I
How,
would say more like times 30.
no, actually, maybe that's a little too much. Or a little less. If anything, I'd say maybe times 10,000. That's probably as big as I'm gonna say. But no, seriously, like you see the first shot. Oh, by the way, this is gonna be a full-on spoiler review. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, turn this off, go watch it, and then come back and watch it later. Or if you're the guy who doesn't give a shit about spoilers, then okay. But don't come crying to me when you're like, oh, he spoiled the movie for me. You watch this review at your own risk, so don't blame me. But enough about that. But no, seriously, when you see this movie, like when the first shot kicks in, you're seeing everything. Like you're seeing like how Earth has become. It's gotten like to like this big wasteland point. Like you're seeing even the skeletons on the floor. And when I saw this, I was like, holy shit! Like right then and there, I'm believing like, okay, this is some pretty messed up shit. And you can also tell because like you're seeing like all the dust clouds forming and stuff like they're all surrounding the the future as we can call it, and and then when you see the ship, it's like okay, like the X-Men ship, like you see Magneto walking out, you see Charles Xavier, you see Storm, and you see Wolverine lighting up a cigar, classic Wolverine style.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, I was getting the feels when I saw that, especially I was like, oh shit, oh shit, it's it's them. But here's the thing though, yeah, and then the whole purpose of the film. If you want me to say it in a nutshell, I could say it, but I'm gonna talk about it from point A to point B, fragment by fragment, piece by piece, generic stuff. So you go from there, and you see. Well, actually, there's something that happens prior to that. Um, like you see Kitty Pryde, you see Bishop, you see Pyro, you see Iceman, you see Blink, and pretty much what happens here is that the Sentinels just come in and attack them, and oh my god, when the Sentinels came in, I was scared, cause there was just a big sense of danger when it came to them. It's like they just show up and they're just like, oh hi, you're a mutant. This is gonna be fun. And here is the thing: the Sentinels are they're no pushovers. They aren't any type of pushovers that you want to deal with. Because what they do, especially against mutants, is it's like think of like hacking in a video game, and like like having all the like massive hacks and stuff. It's like that, but it's like using these big hacks against mutants. Like I remember, like, because Pyro was doing something against one of the Sentinels, and it absorbed Iceman's abilities. Same thing, and the same thing was happening with Iceman when he was fighting a Sentinel too. Same thing, and ultimately they almost get killed, but Kitty Pryde is able to take her and Bishop back to the like they were able to go back in time a little bit to a point where Wolverine, Magneto, Charles Xavier, and Storm, like, when they show up, and they've tried to formulate a plan, like, all right, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna stop them? And I just gotta say, okay, the whole plan was great. And I know, this is coming to the comic book fanboys, okay? And I've read the comics too. I read the X-Men comics. X-Men comics are like my second, they're like my second compared to Spider-Man. But Spider-Man and I have a long history, but X-Men and the comics, we go way back. So I was familiar with the stuff, and I gotta say right now, when they said they were gonna make Days of Future Past into a movie, oh my god, my fanboy was up the roof. But, well, I'll discuss about that. I'll talk about that a little later on. But, here's the thing. Apparently the plan is to send Wolverine back in time, because Charles Xavier and Magneto, like, it's to prevent this whole Sentinel War from breaking down, like, preventing all the mutants and, like, all the humans to not vanish, because apparently the Sentinels are also targeting humans, because and certain humans, because you know how it is, like, if you're in a relationship with a mutant and stuff, or if you're married to a mutant, then it's possible that the kid or the grandkid might be a mutant and stuff, so genetics-wise, it's like, oh, you're a human, but you're with a mutant. That means your son or your daughter or your grandchild is gonna be a mutant. So we're just gonna kill you right away. I'm like, oh god. Like, the Sentinels right then and there is, yeah. I mean, Patrick, what were you like?
I love our speechless.
Throughout, like, just with the whole fact of what the Sentinels can do?
Yeah.
And, here's the thing, though, okay? And going by the comics, cause this is gonna be like a kind of a comparison here, but the whole thing throughout the comic is Kitty Pryde going back in time. That's what happened in the comics, but in here it's Wolverine. But that doesn't negate Kitty Pryde's role in the movie. Like, yeah, she goes back in time to, I mean, I forgot exactly what happened, but I remember Kitty Pryde was the one who went back in time to prevent the Sentinels from doing stuff. But this is Wolverine. However, it's not just random, like, okay, here's the way how he goes back in time and then that's it. It's not like Kitty Pryde becomes useless. And actually, it's because of Kitty Pryde that he goes back in time. Because the plan is, and here's the thing, the reason why Wolverine goes back in time is because he can handle it. Because he has that healing factor, and because he never ages. That's part of his mutant abilities. And the fact that Kitty Pryde sends him, like, he sends his subconscious back to the past, to, tell Charles Xavier, to tell Magneto, like, their past sides. Because Charles and Magneto, they tell Wolverine, like, look, you gotta stop Mystique. Because she's gonna kill Trask. And if she kills Trask, that's gonna set a bad image on the mutants. And with that in mind, that's gonna cause the government to create the Sentinels. And because of that, our world is in the stasis that it's in. So, I was like, okay, that's a good enough reason. So, and you see, it's not like, okay, Wolverine can just go back in time. And like literally, like, just Wolverine going back in time. Like, it's literally like his subconsciousness going back in time to the body of like going back to his body in the past. And here's the thing. Kitty Pryde has to stay consistent with keeping, like, with controlling her powers of keeping Wolverine in the past. Because if she stops even for a little bit, then that whole thing's done. So I like that aspect of, like, okay, like that she plays like she's like the prime focus in keeping Wolverine in the past. And I really like that. Now, Patrick, what were you like when it came to that?
I pretty much like that aspect too.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's funny when you notice Kitty Pryde because I mean, if we're not counting, First Class, Origins, and the recent Wolverine film, I've noticed this, like, going back and watching them. But as each movie goes by, Kitty Pryde's role gets bigger and bigger. Because I mean, in the first one it was like a small cameo. Movie 2, it's almost the same thing. But movie 3, she kind of gets that supporting role. But here, she kind of elevates to like the main character, like one of the main characters, and I really like that because it's like, okay, so and that brings a lot of development to her, because her in Last Stand was kind of one-sided, kinda. I'm not gonna say that much, but moving on from that though. So Wolverine goes back in time, okay, and he tries to gather, and the first thing he tries to do is gather up Charles, okay, and oh my God, when he walks into the mansion and he sees Beast, he's like, "Hey, you and I are gonna be best buds." Wait, how can you tell? I'm from the future. What? And he's like, wait. No, and not just that. I like it. But what I really like though is like when he tries to walk in, and Hank's like no, the school's shut down. There's no professor. Like, oh come on, Beastie, like show some of that power, and then I'm just like, oh God, like. And when you see him turn into the Beast and just trying to attack Wolverine, I found it funny that Charles, like, I mean, he didn't say this, but it was like kind of indirectly. He was like, sit down. But no, and it really made me laugh. And like Patrick, what were you like when it came to that part?
I was like, Logan, do you really want to do that? I mean, it first seen what he can do in the past movies. I will think twice before letting him use his powers.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. When Charles walks in, okay, this is the thing that confused me to the extreme, okay? He was walking, okay? And I remembered in First Class, he got shot in the knee. Oh wait, was it in the knee or was it in the spine? Because I know it's because he got shot and
George Sable?
yeah. What did he get shot
I
in the knee?
believe it was in the spine.
Okay, there we go. And see, it's because he got shot is the fact that he couldn't walk anymore. So that when I saw him, when young Charles first appears and he's walking, I was like, wait, hold on a minute. How the hell are you still walking? Because last time I checked, you were in a wheelchair at the end of First Class. I was like, explanations, please. And
He
they,
was,
and
he,
they,
wa-
you
he
know.
was like, no, I'm seeing more than his.
No, but they explained it like it's because of the serum, and it's not like okay the serum is gonna help him like walk in and he can use his powers. It's like no, there has to be a price. He can walk again, except he loses his powers. So I like that aspect of like okay that he finds himself in like a very shitty place because that's what Charles ultimately is like at this point in the movie because he's like a very pretty much his life's turned to shit. After the events of First Class, in a way, you could say it was like Charles at his most darkest hour. That's the best way I can put it. What about you, Patrick?
I agree.
And, oh my God, I like the homage they make to First Class, okay? Because when Wolverine tries to persuade Charles Xavier, he's like, "Oh yeah, now I remember you. Eric and I tried to convince, like him and I were like, oh yeah, let's try getting him in." And he's like, "So I'm going to say the same thing that you said to me. Fuck off." And initially, when I heard that, I was like, "Well, damn, Wolverine, you just got shut down." What were you like, Patrick? Like when you first heard that from Charles, what were you like?
Damn.
Yeah, I know, right? But ultimately, like, he's able to convince Charles, and apparently the plan is, and he explains the plan to, like, Wolverine explains the plan to Charles and to Beast. And what they have to do is free Magneto, which to Charles he's like, oh god, like why? And Magneto's held in like 100 floors, like below the Pentagon, where he can't use his powers or anything. And to see what happens, like him, and it's like, all right, so how are we gonna get through? How are we gonna get past security? And they bring in Quicksilver. Okay, and oh my god, Quicksilver was a pretty interesting character. Okay, it was pretty interesting, like, cause he's like the Flash from the DC universe. Okay, he can run super fast. He's like, oh hi. Oh, you're not cops. And that's the thing. Like his mom looks and is like, oh. Like, what did he do this time? And I'm just like, oh dear God. Well, I'm like, what did this character do? And then Quicksilver was like, oh, I knew you guys weren't cops. I mean, I checked your license. I checked everything. I'm like, well, good God, if you were my friend, I would be like, back away. It's like he's looking for cash. He's like, oh, let me just safely look into someone's wallet, take the money, put it back in, and then run super fast. Like, that's the impression I got. And then I like what I like about the scene is like when Charles, Wolverine, and Beast, when they see him, they when Quicksilver's like, well, wait, isn't breaking someone out of prison illegal? And then Wolverine's like, you mean like you stealing all those things that you have like standing right by your wall? And he's like, that's an exception. I mean, no, and it's funny how much humor is thrown into this movie. Like, and I feel like it's blended in pretty well because it has its serious moments and it's got its emotional points too, but it's also got its it's also got its like comedic aspects too, and they're tied in pretty well. And I'm gonna just jump straight from here. So with from this scene, they're able to get Magneto out of prison, and they fill Magneto in the same way Wolverine filled Charles and Hankin. And oh my god, what were you, Patrick? What were you like specifically when Magneto was like, "Oh hey Charles," and then he just punches him in the face?
I was like, what?
Yeah. Oh my god, no. And just because I've read the comics, and you know what, comic geek, you can call me that, I don't care. But I found it hilarious when Quicksilver looks at Magneto and sees how he can use he can control metal, right? And he does this, okay? He controls the metal, and what he does is pretty much like he observes this and he's like, my mom met someone who could control metal, and as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh dear God, don't tell me you're Magneto's kid. I'm like, please. If you're, I mean, and I knew that too from the comics that he's Magneto's kid. But what were you like, Patrick?
I was pretty much like the same way Wolverine.
You were like, oh God, like you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's got to be Magneto's kid. There's no joke about that. Oh, and let us talk about the scene, okay? The scene he's in. Let us talk about the scene where the guards come up, they shoot everyone, and Quicksilver does this big scene where he, like, you know, he does what he needs to. Like, like one of the officers, like, like punches himself in the face. The other two, like, they're holding their guns and they're holding it toward the other two, and then he throws like a dish full of food and uses that on one of the cops for them to, like, to slip and stuff. And seeing that all in slow motion was interesting. But after that, it goes back to real time. Like, what I mean by real time, I'm talking about like it goes back to normal speed. And I just laughed because that scene and the music they were playing in the background. Because I was like, wait, hold on. How does this fit? How does the music and the scene fit? Because I mean, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this was intentional to make it funny because it's Quicksilver. But Patrick, what were you like?
Yeah. I was honestly, I was concentrating on the whole movie because it really interested me.
Yeah. Now, jumping from this scene, and this is probably going to be where I go, where instead of bringing it down into detail, I'll kind of jump from point A to point B now. So after this, like Charles thanks Quicksilver for doing all of this, and then they have to fly over to Paris because that's where Trask is gonna be, and apparently that's where Mystique would strike next. And I gotta say, I really liked that scene in the plane. Okay, when Charles and Eric have that argument, and Charles was like, "You abandoned me," but then Eric was like, "No, you abandoned us." And I was sitting there, and all that was going through my head was like, well, goddamn. Like, in a way, you could say, like, because I thought of these two as, like, not as best friends, okay? To me, I thought of these two as like, like brothers. That's how I felt when it came to that scene. I mean, what about you, Patrick?
I was like, damn.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
And, like, going from this scene, we cut to Paris. We see what's going on there. And when we see Trask, and I apologize if I have to say this, okay? The first thing that came to my mind when I saw him was Midget Hitler. I don't know why. When I saw him, I'm like, Midget. And it's not the face. Well, okay, fine. I mean, it was more so his, like, intentions. Like, they just seem so much like Hitler. Like, you remember how Hitler was, like, when he had to, like, put mutants in, like, not mutants, but, like, the Jews in the concentration camps?
Don't remind me about that.
Yeah, like, that's how I felt like with what Trask was doing when it came to the mutants. Like, he was viewing them as enemies, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm seeing the similarities now. Maybe, but we get that part, and we get Mystique, and she's about to do what she has to do to Trask, and Trask has a detector, and he's like, oh, there's a mutant here, and it is pointing to you. And everyone's like, oh my god. Because, and Mystique's like, no, I'm not mutant, because, like, at that point, she's in disguise. But then it gets her pressure to the point where she's like, okay, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna take all you out. That happens, okay? And right before she's about to kill Trask, the gang shows up. And they're just like, hold on. You gotta stop this. Because if you kill Trask, our future is gonna become like hell. That's what it's literally going to become. It's gonna become this ever building wasteland. That's what it's honestly ultimately gonna become. And need I say this, okay? Because at this point, you're seeing Wolverine, and he's looking at this one officer. And the first thing that came to his mind was the events from X-Men 2. Like, he finds himself, like, do you remember what happened in X-Men 2, right, Patrick? Like, when he visits, the old, I forgot what it's called. But you know, like, where he went to do his Weapon X stuff?
Kind of.
That, like, he gets those flashbacks. And because of that, it conflicts with his thinking process. And due to that, it kind of, for a short amount of time, it makes him unstable in the future to a point where his claws come out and, like, he scratches Kitty. And initially, like, see, because that's the thing, I knew this whole time travel thing, like, I was interested already from the start, but at the same time, like, there has to be there has to be a drawback to this. And if you think about it, the drawback almost kicked in 100%. It almost kicked in, like, had Kitty Pryde not, regain full control of keeping Wolverine there, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And, ultimately, during all that stuff, while Wolverine is, dealing with that, and this is where I'm silent because it's something I remember, but this is where Magneto, betrays everyone. And by the way, this is something I think everyone should have saw coming. Because it's, not the Magneto from the future, but the Magneto from the past. Like Patrick.
Yes.
When Magneto double-crossed everyone, what were you like?
Did he really just do that?
Uh-huh. No, because at first I was like, okay, so he's gonna help them, save the future. But ultimately, he double-crosses them for his own particular goals. Like, yeah, he wants to kill... He's like, okay, if we kill Mystique, this whole thing, our future will be saved. And he shoots Mystique in the knee. And why am I silent by that? Here's the thing. Mystique tries running away, and some of her blood gets dropped. Because what Trask wants to do with the Sentinels is, like, he wants to grab Mystique's DNA because he likes the fact that, like, her abilities is what fascinates her. The fact that she can change her shape and her form. And he's like, oh, so if I get that mutant and I study her, and I give those to the Sentinels, then we're all set in our future. We don't have to worry about anything. So I'm just like, oh I'm like, Eric, you messed up big time. Because as soon as that hits, you see Beast and Magneto, and they're having, like, the small throwdown. And let me just say this, to everyone that was present there, when it came to that scene, like, they were like, wait, what's going on? Because they're seeing the mutants for the first time, and they're like, what the heck is going on? And then jumping from there, like, because, what ends up happening is, like, Magneto gets away, and and from that point on, Charles he's still in that depressed mode, to say the least. And he doesn't think that there's any hope left. And I like this parallel that happens because I remember in X-Men 1, Charles gave Wolverine this big advice, and it helped him out as a character throughout X2, X3, and even the last Wolverine film. And I like that this time it's Wolverine giving Charles that advice because he's at his lowest. And he wants And it gets to a point where Charles looks into Wolverine's mind and he sees like all the events happening, like even in X3. But he takes a step back. He's like, no. That's not what I want. And then Wolverine's like, no, don't. I never said look at my past. Look, look and see what you become. And he sees it too. Like he sees that there are students at at the mansion and all the events that take place. And okay, this I saw in the trailer. Okay, but when I saw the scene play out, I was pretty speechless, okay? It's the scene where we get the two Xaviers. I'm just saying, when it came to the two Xaviers, initially I was like, whoa. I mean, because it was like a big awestruck because you're seeing the Xavier from the past who doesn't think everything's gonna work out well. But then you see the Xavier, like the old wise Xavier, and he's just like, no, you need to hope again, because if you start hoping, we're gonna get to a better future. And I mean, Patrick, what were you like when it came to the scene, like between the two Xaviers?
I'm like, what's going on here?
What do you mean?
I was kind of confused.
Yeah. I think it. I mean, wait.
I mean, if I saw a like past version of myself, I would not know what to say or do.
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, if that were to happen to any of us, then hey, I would be saying the same thing. So jumping from there, because of what the old Xavier says, Charles, the young one, gets his confidence back, and due to this, and this is after he tries to activate Cerebro and stuff, he's able to do that, and he tries to track Mystique down, and with that, he continued to try to convince Mystique that no, you don't walk down that path, because if you walk down that path, it's like what I've been saying throughout this whole review. The future isn't gonna change. You killing Trask isn't gonna change anything. If anything, things will get worse for the future. And at the same time, you see Magneto, okay? And he's doing his own little stuff, he's grabbing his helmet, and then he goes up to the train, okay? He grabs the not the tracks, but the rails, and he uses the rails inside to open up one of the Sentinels, okay? And rework their entire programming. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh dear God. I was like, nope. Not that I was disappointed, but just the fact that, I was like, shit, things are about to get real now. Because after all this stuff happened, Mystique is still like, no, I don't know, no. She's still in denial because she's still thinking, I kill Trask, everything will be fine. And, we also kind of jump back and forth between the past and the present. And that's actually what I really, really like about the film, too. I like the fact that, they're jumping back and forth between the past and the future. But here's the thing, it's done right. It's not like, okay, the past is getting all this much time and the future's getting this much time. You need to give them, because this is how I see time travel movies. They need to have, it's not even the right amount of time, but they need to be, if we're switching back and forth, they need to be placed perfectly. And that's honestly how I felt. When we were going back and forth between the past and the future, I thought it was pretty well played out. That's one thing I gotta say. It was pretty well played out. But jumping back to what I was saying though. So by the end of the movie, there's this big showdown. Like, we see Richard. Oh my God, Richard Nixon.
Oh my God.
Let me just say this, okay? When we see Richard Nixon, I don't know why. I just kind of feel like laughing for some reason. There was something about Richard Nixon that made me want to laugh. And I think it's part of because of what he's done. I mean, what was it? The Watergate scandal,
Oh God.
Well, what else was it? I'm trying to remember. It's because of all this stuff, and I'm just like, oh.
Honestly, I try not to remember.
I mean, the one I remember vividly was, the Watergate scandal, but moving history out of the picture, okay? Oh, and speaking about presidents, the nod that JFK was a mutant, okay, was interesting. Like, to get that whole aspect of, okay, he got shot, but they twisted it. It wasn't like some shooter tried to kill him, but, he got shot, but he was a mutant, and Magneto was trying to save him. I liked that. I thought that was like a small, unique spin that they brought to, Magneto. And especially to historical events, too. But ultimately where the film ends up being is they have this fight, everyone's present there, you see the Sentinels, and ultimately for now everything's fine. And that's until Magneto brings the stadium, which, oh my God. Was I the only one who was at the edge of my seat when I saw that? Because I was just going if this were to happen in real life, I'd be running. That's really how I felt when it came to that. But, again, going back to what I'm saying, though. After he does that, and because the Sentinels are, targeting all the humans now. It's targeting mutants and humans. So the fact that they're randomly shooting everyone there, a part of the government, the president, they're all blaming Trask now because they're just because even Nixon just says, now our citizens know we can't protect them because of what you made. And I was like, oh. And it's nice to know, and I thought it was funny, they have this underground base right below the president's office, and Magneto's like, oh, you're hiding there. Pulls up. I just thought that was pretty funny. What about you, Patrick?
I bet he was like, oh, now I am fuck.
I know, right? And initially Mystique is there, and she's about to do what she needs to. But then, this is the thing that confused me, because Wolverine's, no, it's not this part, but, okay, Wolverine's about to attack Magneto, and Magneto, pierces, all these metal bindings to Wolverine, and just tosses him out of the way he's nothing. That's not the part that confused me, okay? Or what confused me. It's the scene where Hank is about to fight the Sentinel, right? Or when he's fighting the Sentinel? When he's fighting the Sentinel, he's like, oh wait, he has a serum, he uses it, so the Sentinel loses the indication, okay, that he's not a mutant, he's human. But then you look at the scene where Nixon has a small conversation with Magneto before he shoots him, right?
Yeah.
And right then and there, through the Sentinel scanning, you see one of them saying mutant, which is from Magneto. But then you look at Richard Nixon, and it says that he's a mutant, and I was sitting there going wait, hold on. I was like, wait, so is this president a mutant too? And then I was like, no.
That would explain a lot.
Yeah, no, and then I was like, no, it's not, no, this president's not a mutant. It's, well, I mean, yeah, he is a mutant, but you know what I mean. I was like, no, it's Mystique. And we see what happened. And ultimately, they're able to defeat Magneto. Mystique was about to finish off Trask, but thanks to, you know, thanks to Charles, she understands what needs to be done. She lets go, and she walks away. And actually, it's because of what happened is that Charles is pretty much like is able to gain back control. He's able to control Magneto for a little bit, and it helps him get back on his feet. Okay, and then from there, you guys know, Mystique goes her own way, Eric goes his own way, and you're seeing Magneto and he's going his own way. I mean, and you're seeing Eric and such. So right after this scene, okay, let me just say this. You cut back to present day, and you're seeing the Sentinels. Like they arrive, and they pretty much kill off everyone that's there. Like they kill off Storm, they kill off Colossus, they kill off Blink, and I felt so bad for Blink because Blink was. I found it really, really interesting because the fact that she could open up portals and such. I was like, wow. I was like, you add that with time travel, you're pretty much set. And that's all I gotta say. You're pretty much set if you have that. But here's the thing, though. Right as the Sentinels got to Magneto, you know, the future Magneto, that got injured and is like, you know, like he's about to die, and you're seeing this confrontation between Xavier and him, like reflecting back on the past, and you're seeing the Sentinels walk in, right?
Yeah.
The Sentinel walks in, and it's about to eliminate them. And right when Mystique drops the gun, history changes. And then, right from that point on, we cut to Wolverine waking up with music playing in the background and such. And due to this, he walks in and he sees like all these kids, and he's like, "Oh, okay." Not only that, he sees Rogue, and he sees Bobby, Iceman, and then he sees a room like with Kitty Pryde and Colossus, or Peter in this case, because they're teaching the class, and then we see Storm, with students and such. And then we get to the biggest bombshell, okay? This was stuck on me for the rest of the day, and that's why I was holding it off for a while, is because of this scene. Right when Wolverine walks into the room, he sees Jean Grey, okay? And the first thing I said was, I swear to God, if we're going back to what happened at the events of Wolverine, then I'm gonna be like, oh no. I was like, wait, is Jean really still alive? And ultimately she is. Jean's still alive, Scott's still alive, and Wolverine's just like, okay, what the hell just happened? And Xavier, he remembered, a promise that he made to Wolverine about finding Scott, finding Jean, finding Storm, and he's like, yeah, there's a lot of catching up to do. And I like how they go back to the past, and they save Wolverine from drowning, or you know what I mean, right, Patrick?
Yeah.
They save Wolverine, you're seeing Stryker, and Stryker's like, I'll take him from here, but then you see the eyes, and you're like, oh, it's Mystique. And then that's how the movie ends. And then you see the post-credit scene, which, have you seen the post-credit scene yet, Patrick?
I don't remember.
Okay. The post-credit...
I think I did.
Okay, the post-credit scene is like this. It's in the desert. And... oh my god. When you see, this mysterious person, okay? And he's, reaching his hands out, like he's, on some god level shit. That's really Like that's the thing I saw. I was like, oh shit, because I was like, okay, who is this god level? And then I thought to myself, and it was like, and someone or and someone. I'm like, oh shit, those words. If you guys don't know what en or means, apocalypse. They were chanting apocalypse. And you see the camera tilt, and you see the gray skin, and you see the face, and you see him building the pyramid, and you're just like, oh shit, shit. And you're like, shit's about to get real in the next X-Men movie. I mean, Apocalypse is, he's ridiculous. Okay, like that's all I gotta say. What Apocalypse does is really, really ridiculous. And for those who only watch the movies, I'm not gonna say what he does, but he is the best thing I can say is like he's like just massively terrifying. That's the best thing I can say. At least until we figure out what else happens and such. But overall, like I'm like, wow, 46 minutes of just me talking about the story. But now that I've brought up like what the end brought up what the story was, how does this compare to the other X-Men movies? Like X-Men 1, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, First Class, Origins, the Wolverine. Where would I place this? Initially, X-Men 2 was always my top. X-Men 2 was always at the top of my list. But that's not the case anymore. After seeing this, I'm like, I guess we've got a winner now. X-Men Days of Future Past is clearly the movie that like really, and I mean really, because it takes a lot for something to beat X2, and I'm just talking about like in X-Men for any of the X-Men films, it takes a lot to beat X2. So the fact that it was able to beat X2 for me, I was like, wow. And I mean, honestly, if I had to give this thing a rating, like I'd probably give it a full 10 out of 10. Like I didn't have any problems with this whatsoever. Patrick, what about you? What were you like with the movie?
I had no problem with it.
I mean, because here's the thing, the camera work was fantastic. The the special effects, the way how the Sentinel looked. I mean, it was pretty eye catching, and the screenplay was it was very, very unique, and I liked it too because I don't know, there was just something about the screenplay that just made it work. And just me, like, being, like, because Days of Future Past, if you guys don't know, is actually my favorite arc when it came to the comics for the X-Men. So the fact that they made this was, for me, it felt like a ride home. Like, it felt like a big homecoming gift. That's really how it felt like for me. But here's one thing I want to talk about. And that's, the fact that they kind of retconned some of the continuity that happened in X-Men, okay? Throughout the movies. Now let me say this. X-Men 1 I think happened because you do see the strand of white hair from Rogue, okay? So you can tell that happened. It may have happened differently, but it still happened, okay? The fact that she has that. But the fact that Scott Summers and Jean Grey are still alive, okay? That completely negates X2. Or not X2, X3. And Wolverine, I mean, Origins is kind of negated too because when Wolverine gets saved by Stryker, it's actually Mystique. So I'm just a little curious because what Charles says to Wolverine is like, yeah, we got some catching up to do. And I'm hoping in the next one they kind of explain that because I think that's interesting that that Singer, like Bryan Singer, like the guy that made the first two X-Men movies, like he looked at Last Stand and he looked at Origins and he's just like, no. We're just gonna act like those movies never happened. But to make it possible, we're gonna have to do something about it. So to do that, I was like, I thought it was cool because it's never been done before, and it made the movie very, very unique. And yeah, it's a retcon. I get that, but hey, and I mean, I know people have their opinions on the X-Men movies, okay, but not everyone. But most of the fans didn't really like Origins, and they didn't like Last Stand that much. And I might get, and I'm amongst some of those people. Like I like Last Stand to some extent, but personally, I didn't enjoy it as much as I did with the first two. And the same thing go with Origins. But like I said before, overall rating I had to give it a 10 out of 10. I didn't have any problems with it. Cinematography was great. The acting was fantastic. And all the characters, they didn't seem one-dimensional at all. And I'm talking about the minor ones too. Like even when it came to the secondary characters, like everyone had the amount of screen time that they needed. Nothing felt forced, nothing felt rushed. Everything felt perfect in this film. Patrick, what did you think?
I agree.
Yeah. So overall, that is going to be my review on X-Men Days of Future Past, and holy shit, like this thing's almost close to an hour. I'm surprised I've been talking that long. But all I gotta say is, before I go, Bryan Singer, thank you. Thank you for coming back and making X-Men. I mean, the first two movies were great, and what you did by changing the timeline and altering events, like, the fact that X3 never happened and Origins didn't happen, it was unique, and I really, really liked it. So, until then, guys, I mean, the next video I might do will probably be relating to what my predictions are for X-Men Apocalypse, which I might probably do, like, as like a prediction video with some of the other people, like, with Austin and Jaleel and Jake and Patrick. If you want to join too, you can join as well. Kind of throw like a little prediction video, kind of thinking like, all right, what might happen, what may not happen, like based on what we've been getting so far on the Apocalypse movies. But before this thing goes any longer, like I said before, guys, I'm Shirag.
And Patrick.
And this is our review of X-Men Days of Future Past. And we'll catch you guys later. Peace.